My wife slept with her own brother, so I exposed them. For years, I thought I understood the meaning of trust. I was married to Anna, the woman I believed was my soulmate. She was warm, gentle, and fiercely loyal. Or so I thought. To me, she was the kind of partner people dream of finding. She made the world feel safe, steady, like nothing could shake the foundation we had built together. And with Anna came her brother, Daniel. From the very beginning of our relationship, I admired their closeness. Anna often said Daniel was her best friend before he was her brother. They shared everything: childhood secrets, teenage rebellions, the struggles of adulthood. I thought it was sweet, even endearing. Families like theirs were rare, and I felt lucky to be welcomed into that bond. We did everything together: dinners, road trips, birthdays, even lazy Sundays where Daniel would show up unannounced and collapse onto our couch like he lived there. I didn't mind. To me, it just meant we were a family. In the early years, I would laugh when people joked that Daniel spent more time with us than he did in his own apartment. That's what family's for, I'd say, proud that our home had become a second home for him. But looking back, I realized there were signs. Small, almost invisible cracks in the picture I thought was perfect. The way Anna's eyes softened when she looked at him. The way his hand lingered on her shoulder a second too long. The hushed conversations that would fall silent the moment I entered the room. At the time, I ignored it all. Who questions the bond between siblings? I told myself it was nothing. My wife was loyal, her brother was family, and I, foolishly, trusted them both without question. But trust can be the sharpest blade of all. At night, I would sometimes wake to find Anna scrolling through her phone, smiling faintly at something she wouldn't explain. When I asked, she'd laugh it off, call me paranoid, and curl into my chest like she had nothing to hide. I wanted so badly to believe her that I swallowed the unease clawing at my stomach. Denial is easy when the truth is unthinkable. Back then, I told myself I was the luckiest man alive. I had a wife who loved me, a brother-in-law who was practically my own blood, and a life that seemed unshakable. But what I didn't know, what I couldn't allow myself to imagine, was that beneath the laughter, the shared dinners, the smiles that seemed so genuine, there was a darkness festering, a secret so vile, so unspeakable, that when I finally uncovered it, it would shatter my world into 1,000 irreparable pieces. And from those pieces, I would build my revenge. At first, it was nothing more than a feeling. The kind of subtle discomfort you can't explain. A flicker of doubt that passes through you so quickly, you almost convince yourself you imagined it. Anna and Daniel had always been close. That was never in question. But there's a difference between closeness and comfort that feels too intimate. I began to notice the way they seemed to share a language of their own. It was in the little things, the way they'd exchange glances across the table and burst into laughter at some unspoken joke. The way her mood would shift instantly when Daniel entered the room, as if his presence alone could rearrange her entire world. And then there were the silences. The moments when I'd walk in and find them huddled on the couch, speaking in low voices. I'd clear my throat, and the conversation would stop mid-sentence. Anna would sit up straighter, smoothing her hair, while Daniel suddenly found his phone fascinating. "Everything okay?" I'd ask, forcing a smile. "Of course," Anna would reply, her voice a little too bright. "We were just talking." Talking. Always just talking. I told myself I was overthinking it. Siblings could be close, couldn't they? Not everything had to mean something sinister. But then I'd catch Daniel brushing a stray strand of hair from Anna's face, or see the way her hand lingered on his arm when she laughed. And something inside me twisted. It wasn't just me who noticed either. One evening at a family dinner, my mother leaned toward me, her voice low. "Your wife and her brother, they're very close, aren't they?" I forced a laugh, masking the unease in my chest. "They always have been." She smiled politely, but her eyes stayed on them across the room, Anna resting her hand on Daniel's knee as they whispered and giggled like teenagers. When she finally looked back at me, there was something in her gaze I couldn't ignore. Concern. That night, as Anna slept peacefully beside me, I stared at the ceiling, my chest tight with questions I couldn't bear to ask. Why did she smile brighter with him than with me? Why did their bond feel less like family and more like something forbidden? I wanted to confront her. God, how I wanted to demand answers, to rip the truth from her lips. But instead, I buried it. Smiled in the daylight, played the role of the trusting husband, and told myself I was imagining things. Because the alternative, the possibility that my wife, the woman I loved, was crossing a line with her own brother, was too monstrous to face. And yet, denial has a way of rotting from the inside. Each laugh they shared, each glance, each secret conversation was like acid on my soul. I told myself I had no proof. I told myself they were family. I told myself to stop being paranoid. But deep down, I already knew. Something was very, very wrong. And the truth was closer than I dared to imagine.
Suspicion has a way of creeping into everything. Once it takes root, every look, every word, every gesture becomes evidence. For weeks, I tried to convince myself that nothing was wrong, but the more I looked, the harder it became to ignore the cracks in the picture-perfect life I thought I had. It started with Anna's phone. She'd never been secretive before, but suddenly she was guarding it like a treasure chest. If I walked into the room, she'd flip it over, screen down. Notifications would buzz at midnight, and she'd silence them quickly, pretending not to notice. One night, while she showered, I picked it up, my heart pounding. Locked. She'd added a passcode, something she had never bothered with before. When I asked her about it later, she smiled too easily. "Oh, just work stuff," she said, brushing it off. "Confidential emails. You know how it is." But Anna didn't work in a field that required secrecy, and the way she avoided my eyes when she said it made my stomach turn. Then there were the late nights. She started staying out longer, claiming to be with friends or caught up at work. At first, I believed her. Why wouldn't I? But one evening, curiosity got the better of me. I called one of the friends she said she'd been out with. The hesitation on the other end of the line told me everything I needed to know. "She wasn't with me tonight," her friend admitted quietly. "Is everything okay?" I thanked her, hung up, and sat in the dark living room until Anna returned hours later. She smelled faintly of cologne. Not hers, not mine. When I asked where she'd been, she smiled, kissed me on the cheek, and said, "With Sarah, you know her." The lie slid off her tongue so easily, it chilled me. And then there was Daniel. He'd always been around, but now his presence seemed constant. Too constant. He'd drop by unannounced, stay late into the night, sometimes even fall asleep on our couch. They'd disappear into the kitchen together, whispering like co-conspirators, their voices falling silent when I entered. I remember one particular evening. I came home early, surprising them. The house was quiet, lights dimmed, until I heard it. Low laughter, drifting from the back bedroom. My bedroom. My heart stopped. I pushed the door open, every nerve in my body on fire. And there they were. Not in each other's arms, not caught in the act. No,
They were sitting on the edge of the bed, shoulder to shoulder, talking in voices so hushed I couldn't catch the words. When they saw me, they sprang apart like guilty children. "What's going on?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Nothing," Anna said too quickly, her cheeks flushed. "We were just reminiscing about childhood." Daniel added, "Yeah, man, just stories. Relax." But I couldn't relax. Not anymore. The picture-perfect life I'd built was unraveling before my eyes, thread by thread. And no matter how much I wanted to deny it, the truth was becoming clearer with each passing day. Something was happening between them, something I wasn't supposed to see. And soon, I would. There comes a moment when suspicion dies and certainty takes its place. For me, that moment came on a Thursday night. Anna had told me she was going out with colleagues after work, some casual drinks that would probably run late. Her tone was breezy, her smile convincing, but something inside me twisted when she kissed me goodbye. I waited an hour before leaving the house. Driving aimlessly at first, I found myself circling near Daniel's apartment. I told myself it was a coincidence, but deep down, I knew exactly where I was headed. The closer I got, the heavier my chest felt, each beat of my heart like a drum against my ribs. His building was dark, except for one window, a faint glow leaking through the curtains. Anna's car was parked just outside. I sat in my car for a long time, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. I wanted to drive away, to pretend I hadn't seen it, but I couldn't. Finally, I forced myself out, every step toward that building feeling like a descent into hell. The door wasn't locked. Inside, the faint hum of a television filled the silence, but it wasn't the TV that drew me deeper. It was the muffled sound of laughter, intimate, hushed. I followed it down the hall, each step heavier than the last, until I reached Daniel's bedroom door. It was ajar. Through the narrow gap, I saw them. Anna, my wife. Daniel, her brother. Not talking, not laughing, entwined. Her head thrown back, his hands on her body like he owned her. The sight was obscene, a grotesque parody of love. For a moment, the world went silent. My breath caught in my throat. My vision tunneled, and all I could see was them, my wife, her brother, together. I must have made a sound, because Anna's head jerked toward the door. Our eyes met. The color drained from her face. "Wait," she stammered, scrambling for words that could never exist. Daniel moved, half shielding her, his expression darkening. "What the hell are you doing here?" What was I doing there? I wanted to laugh. I wanted to scream. Instead, I stood frozen in the doorway, my heart pounding, the image of them seared into my mind like a brand I would never escape. "You—" My voice cracked, barely a whisper. "You were—" Her brother. Anna's lips trembled, but no denial came. No explanation, no plea. Just silence. Guilty, suffocating silence. And in that silence, the truth settled over me like ash. 3 years. That's what I would later learn. 3 years of betrayal, of deceit, of watching me play the fool while they hid their perversion behind the mask of family. I left without another word, stumbling back into the night, my chest hollow, my soul burning. The world I had built, my marriage, my family, my very identity had been shattered in an instant. And as I drove aimlessly through the city, gripping the wheel with trembling hands, one thought crystallized in my mind, sharp and cold as ice. If they could betray me in the most unforgivable way imaginable, then I would make them pay. The night I caught them,
burned itself into my mind like a scar. But when I walked back into my own home hours later, something strange happened. I didn't rage. I didn't scream. I smiled. Anna was asleep when I slid into bed beside her. She stirred faintly, murmured my name, and curled closer to me as if nothing had happened. The audacity of it nearly broke me, but I forced my breathing to stay calm, steady, because I realized then anger would only give me away. If I wanted to destroy them, I couldn't let them know I knew. Not yet. So I wore a mask. In the morning, I kissed her cheek, made her coffee just the way she liked it, and asked about her day. I even joked with Daniel when he stopped by, laughing at his stupid stories, feigning brotherly warmth while bile rose in my throat. Every word, every smile, every casual touch was an act of theater, and they believed it. That was the beauty of it. While inside me burned a storm of betrayal and rage, on the outside I was calm, affectionate, forgiving. I let Anna think she still held me in the palm of her hand. I let Daniel believe he had gotten away with the ultimate betrayal. But behind my eyes, I was watching, listening, collecting every detail, every lie, every opportunity. I started tracking their movements. I noticed the little signals they used, the excuses they gave. I learned her girls' nights always aligned with Daniel's sudden late shifts. I learned the times, the places, the patterns of their sickness. And with each secret I uncovered, my plan sharpened. At dinner, Anna would laugh, her hand brushing mine, and I'd smile back while imagining the exact moment her mask would crack. Daniel would toast to family, and I'd raise my glass while envisioning his face crumbling when the truth came crashing down on him. They thought they were clever, but what they didn't know was that the game had already shifted, because I was no longer the fool in their story. I was the puppeteer, and every string I pulled was tightening the noose around their necks. For now, I let them bask in their illusion of secrecy, let them revel in stolen moments. But in the quiet of my mind, I whispered a promise to myself. When the time comes, they won't just be exposed. They'll be ruined. The moment I decided to destroy them, something inside me shifted. I no longer saw Anna as my wife. I no longer saw Daniel as my brother. They were both prey, blinded by lust, trapped in their delusion, oblivious to the hunter in their midst. And hunters don't rush. Hunters wait. I began with small steps, subtle things, the kind they wouldn't notice until it was too late. I bought a second phone, one Anna never saw, one Daniel never knew existed. On it, I recorded calls, captured screenshots, tracked locations. Technology became my weapon, and their arrogance was my ally. Anna never noticed the tiny recorder I left running beneath the seat of her car. Daniel never questioned why his late-night visits always coincided with my sudden business trips. Every time they touched, every time they whispered, every time they fell deeper into their sickness, I was there, not in person, but in evidence. Piece by piece, I was building a case, a dossier of filth that would one day bury them both. But revenge isn't just about truth. It's about timing.
and timing requires patience. So I kept feeding the illusion. I told Anna she was glowing lately, asked if she had been doing something different. Her smile faltered, but only for a second, before she leaned in to kiss me. That kiss tasted like guilt and victory. I joked with Daniel about family loyalty, clinking glasses with him while he looked me in the eye and lied through his teeth. I let him believe he was winning. But behind the smile, I was planting seeds. One night, I left my laptop open on the kitchen counter with an email draft half written. Meeting with divorce lawyer confirmed. Gather evidence first. I watched Anna read it while she thought I wasn't looking. The color drained from her face. She deleted the draft, thinking she had saved herself. She hadn't realized I wanted her to see it. Another time, I told Daniel I'd heard rumors at work about hidden cameras in apartments. Crazy what people do these days, I said casually. He laughed, but his eyes flicked toward Anna nervously, just for a split second. That flicker told me everything. Paranoia was beginning to creep in, and paranoia was exactly what I needed. Because my revenge wasn't just about exposing them. It wasn't just about letting the world see their filth. It was about making them destroy themselves from the inside out. And as I lay awake beside Anna that night, listening to the steady rhythm of her breathing, I smiled in the darkness. The trap was set, the bait was laid. Now, all that remained was to watch them walk willingly into their own ruin.
Revenge is meaningless if it happens in the dark. Anna and Daniel had hidden in shadows, thrived in secrecy, but I would drag them into the light, where there was nowhere to run, nowhere to hide, nowhere to deny what they were. The stage was simple, a family gathering. Anna's birthday, to be precise. She loved attention, loved being the center of the room. I told her I'd planned a surprise, and her eyes glowed with delight. Little did she know, the only surprise waiting for her would be the death of her carefully constructed lies. Everyone was there, our parents, friends, extended family, even Daniel. The house buzzed with chatter and laughter, glasses clinking, the scent of food filling the air. Anna fluted through the crowd, radiant, her hand brushing mine as though we were the perfect couple. Daniel hovered nearby, all smiles, the picture of a supportive brother. My stomach churned at the sight of them, but outwardly I was the perfect husband, smiling, toasting, laughing, until it was time. I stood in the center of the living room, raising my glass. The chatter dimmed, eyes turning toward me. "I just want to say," I began, my voice steady, "how lucky I am to have a wife like Anna. Beautiful, loyal, devoted." Anna beamed, glowing under the praise. "And how lucky she is to have a brother like Daniel. Always by her side, always close." Daniel chuckled nervously. Anna's face faltered just slightly. I let the silence hang before I continued. "In fact, they're so close, it would be a shame if the rest of you didn't know just how deep their bond runs." I pulled out the remote. The projector screen flickered to life. And then everything spilled out.
The pictures, the recordings, the messages I had collected over months. Anna and Daniel together in ways that no one could deny, her voice whispering promises that should never have been spoken, his laughter as he called me a fool. The room fell into stunned silence. Glasses froze halfway to mouths. My mother gasped. My father cursed. Anna's face drained of color, her hands trembling. Daniel swore, jumping to his feet, but the evidence kept rolling, undeniable and damning. "No," Anna whispered, her voice breaking. "It's not what it looks like." But her own words betrayed her, her own laughter, her own confessions. The silence shattered into chaos. Family members recoiled. Friends muttered in disgust. My father's face turned red with fury, while Anna's mother covered her face and sobbed. Anna collapsed, begging me with tear-streaked eyes. Daniel shouted at me, lunging forward, but two uncles restrained him before he could reach me. And through it all, I stood calm, my mask finally gone. "This," I said, my voice carrying above the chaos, "is the truth they've been hiding. For 3 years, my wife and her brother betrayed not just me, but every one of you. Tonight, I set them free from their lies, and I set myself free from them." I placed the remote down, the final image still burning on the screen, their shame immortalized. The room erupted again. Shouts, tears, curses. Anna screamed my name. Daniel spat threats. But I didn't stay to listen. I walked out, leaving them to the wreckage I had unleashed, the world they had destroyed with their own hands. For the first time in years, I felt light, free. And behind me, I knew their world had ended. The room was chaos. Shouts ricocheted off the walls. Glasses clattered to the floor. Anna was on her knees, hands pressed to her face, tears streaming down her cheeks. Daniel pounded the coffee table with his fists, cursing, his face twisted with fury and fear. "Mike, you can't do this!" Daniel yelled, eyes wild. This isn't real! You can't just show—" "It is real," I said, calm, almost detached. Every word, every image, every secret, all of it. Anna's sobs grew louder. Please, please, everyone, you don't understand." But no one wanted to hear her. The room had turned against them. Friends whispered about betrayal, about disgust, about how two people could betray not just a husband, a wife, or a family, but the very trust that held everyone together. Anna's father, usually stoic, slammed his hand against the wall. "You've ruined everything," he shouted. "Everything we've built." Daniel tried to speak, to explain, but the words caught in his throat. The dam of secrecy had burst, leaving them exposed, helpless. People who once smiled at them now recoiled from them. Friends whispered about betrayal, about disgust, about how two people could betray not just a husband, a wife, or a family, but the very trust that held everyone together. Anna's hands shook as she tried to reach for Daniel, to apologize, to somehow stop the avalanche of humiliation. But even he turned from her, his face red with shame, eyes darting nervously to the screen that still displayed the evidence of their betrayal. The weight of reality hit them fully for the first time. They were no longer siblings, no longer lovers in secret. They were criminals in the court of public opinion. I watched all of it in silence, my pulse steady,
my breathing calm. I had expected anger, of course, but not this level of despair, this complete unraveling. They had thought they could escape consequence. They hadn't imagined that I could and would turn their world into rubble.
"Please, Mike," Anna whimpered, her voice breaking. "Please, I can fix it. I can—" "No," I said, cutting her off. "There's nothing to fix. You chose this path. You chose betrayal. And now, everyone knows." Daniel's knees buckled as he sank into a chair, head in his hands. You're insane," he muttered, but it was hollow. He knew I was not. By the time the night ended, the fallout was complete. Anna and Daniel were broken, their shame public, their family divided. Friends had left in whispers, some never to return. The house, once warm and inviting, now felt like a courtroom where they were both convicted felons. And through it all, I realized something I hadn't expected. I felt nothing but clarity. For the first time in years, I was no longer the betrayed husband. I was no longer trapped by their lies. I had exposed them. I had won. And now, there was nothing left to fear.
The chaos of the night had faded, leaving only silence. Anna and Daniel were broken. Their pride, their arrogance, their carefully hidden lives, all laid bare for everyone to see. And for the first time, I allowed myself to feel the full weight of what I had accomplished. It wasn't satisfaction in the petty sense. This was something deeper, clearer. I moved through the house deliberately, surveying the wreckage. Plates from the failed birthday dinner were scattered on the floor. Glasses still glimmered with leftover wine. Chairs were overturned. The living room smelled of fear, shame, and panic. I stood in the center of it all and let the silence soak in. For months, I had played a role, smiling, pretending to trust while gathering evidence, planting seeds of doubt, orchestrating their destruction. And now, the performance was over. The mask I had worn for so long was finally gone. I didn't feel guilt. I didn't feel anger. Not really. I felt clarity. Step by step, I set about severing every lingering connection to them. I changed the locks on the house, erased all shared accounts, and deleted every trace of their intrusion into my life. Social media, joint memberships, photos, gone. Every memory that once belonged to them now belonged only to me, sanitized of their presence. Even their laughter, once comforting in my ears, was gone now, replaced by echoes of their shame. I sat in my office reviewing everything I had collected over the months. Messages, recordings, hidden camera footage. Every confession, every touch, every laugh frozen in time. I realized then that revenge wasn't just about exposing them publicly. It was about reclaiming control, taking the power they thought they had. I poured myself a drink, sat back, and let it slide down my throat. Cool, smooth, final. There was no satisfaction in malice, only justice, only balance restored. Anna and Daniel were left to pick up the pieces of their ruined lives, while I walked forward, untouched, untethered, and free. I thought about the past, the years I had loved blindly, the nights I had slept beside her,
oblivious to their secret. I thought about the anger that had once threatened to consume me, and I realized it had been mine to control all along. I had chosen my path, and I had walked it with patience, precision, and clarity. Outside, the world continued as always. Neighbors, friends, and family would talk, whisper, and speculate, but their words were meaningless to me. I had faced the darkness and emerged unshaken. I stood and looked out the window, watching the night stretch into quiet streets. Freedom felt strange and weightless, yet it was mine. The world had finally corrected itself. They had paid their price, and I was free. Cold, unshakable, and finally in control.
The house was silent now. The storm of betrayal and exposure passed. Anna and Daniel were gone, physically and emotionally removed from my life. Their names were whispered behind closed doors, their shame a permanent stain on the family they had destroyed. I sat in the dim light of my living room, glass in hand, and allowed myself a long, slow breath. The chaos of the past weeks had left scars, yes, but also clarity. I had loved. I had been deceived. I had been betrayed. And I had acted. Revenge was not a rush of violence, not a moment of blind fury. Revenge was patience, precision, and cold calculation. Revenge was making sure the people who thought they were untouchable understood, finally, the cost of their betrayal. I thought about the life I had once known, the warmth of family dinners, the laughter of shared secrets, the illusion of trust. It was gone. And yet, in its place, I felt a strange serenity. Freedom isn't always soft or comforting. Sometimes it's sharp, clean, complete. I rose from the chair and walked through the house, checking doors, locks, and windows. Every trace of them removed. No reminders, no photographs, no whispers of the past. The air smelled faintly of candle wax and polish. Everything was in its place, order restored. Outside, the world continued as if nothing had happened. Cars passed, neighbors spoke, life moved on. But inside, I knew something had changed forever. I had learned the harshest truths. Love can be a lie. Family can betray. Trust can be weaponized. And yet, even in the aftermath, there was power. Power in knowing the truth, in seeing the deception for what it was, in acting when others falter. I poured the last of my drink into the sink, setting the glass down carefully. Silence filled the room once more. I felt neither regret nor sorrow, only the cold, unshakable certainty that justice, however personal, had been served. Some stories end in forgiveness, some in understanding. Mine ended in exposure. And in that ending, I found something that no betrayal could ever take from me: control. Control over my life, control over my future, control over the truth. The world could whisper, people could judge. Let them. I knew the truth. I had acted, and I had survived. And sometimes that is more than enough.